continue by another really exciting fireside chat and explore the relationships between founders and investors, which I'm sure that many of you are very, very curious. And for that, I want to welcome the moderator on stage in a second. He's just literally made it 10, 15 minutes ago right into this venue. So I'm super, super happy that he made the effort to come here, and that even with like slight delays of planes, we could make it that all of you can have access to an amazing investor interviewing an amazing founder. So I want to welcome Hussein Kanji, the co-founder of Hoxton Ventures, one of the top European seed funds. And you can learn from him in a conversation with Zeinab Ardeshir, one of the most successful early stage pharma entrepreneurs. So please welcome Hussein on stage.
So Zeinab, maybe it would be great to get a little bit of introduction from you, and maybe how long, I don't know how long we've actually known each other. It's probably been a handful of years now, so maybe hear it from you as to your background.
Sure. So my background is a pharmacist. I've been a pharmacist for the past 18 years. And I know that we've known of each other for many years, as you said. So we knew what we're doing and all of that. And you have reached out and helped me as an advisor. I think you were one of the first people that I actually did my pitch for. You can joke about it.
Yeah, and I think your very first pitch was not a digital type company. It was a pharmacy, if I remember correctly. It was a community-oriented pharmacy. So, yes. And those were your roots, right? So maybe walk us through a little bit of the journey as to how you shifted from being just a pharmacist to something that was much more online-oriented.
Exactly. So I've been a pharmacist from different countries, and I had a good idea about what customers really need, but I really didn't know how to go about doing a better service. So I started reading a lot about it and actually reaching out to real customers and seeing what are you having right now as a service. And then you were one of the biggest eye-openers for me that actually tech is one of the best solutions for it. And I was saying, this is true. Right now is the right time to have those tech enablers in place to be able to give a better service. So the fun journey was that I thought, okay, we're going to do this differently, and it has to be that consumer health tech business. And for that, for the first 100 customers, I started signing them up myself, going door to door, talking to them. And what I did was I said, how about I give you a chart? And this chart will be a handy list for you of what medicine you're taking, when you're taking it, and you'd have this with you. And this was so popular. And first it was all me trying to do with my PDF skills. But then I saw, no, this is something that we can do, and this is something that we can create the software to do it consistently integrated with prescription data, with dispensing data, and the patient's preferences.
And most of your customers were, if I remember correctly, older. There was an older population that was taking the drugs because that's what they needed in order to stay healthy.
Yes, because most of the medicine right now is about, let me say like this. Most of the settings are about episodic. So somebody has a problem, they go and get a prescription, they get it dispensed and go, off you go. But most of the medicines are actually repeat medicines. So more than 85% of medications are repeat medications. So people who've got chronic conditions. A majority of them are elderly because they've got these multiple conditions that they have medicine, one from a heart doctor, the other one from a diabetic doctor, and integrating them together, taking them on time, is quite confusing for them sometimes.
And there's no software or there's no chart for them to make this really easy. That's what you were doing, and that's kind of what resonated. And you know, the traditional pharmacies, in the UK, they're the Boots or the Superdrug or the Lloyds. They don't do any of this, right? It's just you go in and you get your medication and you kind of leave. There's not much aftercare after you get the drugs in the box.
Absolutely. So the NHS expenditure on medicine in 21-22 has been 17.8 billion. Interestingly, half of them, don't take it correctly, And that's because of the same reason that you said. As a healthcare professional, nobody takes the initiative to say, these medicines have to be synced, patients see it as a list, let's make sure that we get it to them on time. That's the first and most important step for them to take it correctly. And that's what we created with our own software. So not only the prescription, the operating system handles complex health informatics, it handles the patient portal, it handles the clinical requirements, and it integrates all the logistic operations and last mile delivery. So all of this creates a digital, personalized experience for the patient.
So you found your first 100 customers kind of sort of door to door.
Yes.
You went and saw them yourself.
Yes.
You were their pharmacist.
Yes.
You gave them their medication.
Yes.
You gave them their charts. You told them how to take it. You made sure that they were kind of complying. How did you shift that? Like, when did the light bulb go off to say, I should make this a software solution,
Sure.
I should invest in technology? And maybe this is a good time to introduce the other half of the business, like
Yes.
you, who is, you're also your better half.
Yes.
When did you rope your husband into all of
Into
this?
us. Absolutely. So he's been my biggest supporter from day one, because we have 3 children. And, taking off my salary, and, he's been supporting me in that way. Plus, he has been a serial entrepreneur as well. So giving me the right resources to educate myself. So BY Combinator, access to friends and family to actually do the pitches and see what are the passions, what are the things that come across. And actually a lot of brainstorming of what are the things that can work properly. So his experience is tech, software engineering, and business side. So I would bring in the customer feedback. So this customer obsessed is what we both share, but then being able to translate that to the team and say, okay, these are the things that we should be curious about. These are the things that we should be brave to create new solutions about. Those were the things that my other half helped a lot. So before the operating system, we were mixing and matching 13 different softwares to do what our operating system is doing now. And yeah.
And there's no software stack in the pharmacy space that kind of does this kind of stuff off the shelf, right? This is all stuff that you guys had to write yourself in order to make the systems work.
Absolutely. There is little piecemeals, so nothing disintegrated. So they might be able to get color charts, but somebody is doing the manual data entry. They have very old pharmacy patient records that are mostly a labeling machine. So there's no such. I have lots of stories from, ladies coming in and saying, "I want my orange tablet." I had no idea what that orange tablet is. Or they'd come and say, they'd open the pack and say, "There's only 2 of this here, but I take 6 medicine." And I said, "Well, she's right. I should be able to do that for them." So nothing disintegrated, and especially nothing dispersonalized to have all the service for them.
So you built all this software, you found those first 100 customers.
Yes.
My cousin's also a pharmacist in Cambridge, and she tells me that PillSorted is now the largest pharmacy in Cambridge, in the town of Cambridge in the UK.
Yes.
How did you go from 100 customers to being the biggest pharmacy in your own city?
A lot of it is, we did actually a very lovely customer survey. So more than 320 of we did a random for 320 of our customers. And more than 75% of them said, first of all, they couldn't live without us. So that was brilliant. And 25% of them said they heard about us through word of mouth. So word of mouth is super important, but in clinical settings, a lot of it is about trust. So I started direct with customers, but on the other hand, I was talking to the clinicians, to the prescribers, and I was talking to the carers. These 3 teams have to work together with the pharmacy to be able to give that seamless care. And it was really fun when I'd call at the beginning to the doctors' surgeries, and I'd say, "Hey, I'm Zeinab, I'm calling from PillSorted." And they'd come and say, "Pill what?" That was the first initial expression. But then I managed to create ambassadors between those teams to actually talk about us and say, these are things that they're doing different. Example, for the carers, we do a regular touch base with them, because one of the feedbacks that they told me was, we are confident with all the other fundamental things that we do in the job. So giving food on time, taking care of all the other washing, clothes, dishes and stuff. But the part that they're super nervous about and worried is medicine. So somebody who's got the clinical knowledge, touching base with them and say, are you okay? Has there been any changes? That is super powerful. And this helped us grow to 20,000 items. We do 10% of the market share of PillSorted, and that's a combined because other than that, there's much smaller ones that do less than 5,000, that sort of thing.
And I remember looking at the growth chart. I mean, it was exponential.
Yes.
And then you ended up with a little small fleet of cars that were doing the delivery drops for you.
Yes.
So you became pretty big overnight. Somehow or another, you guys got in touch with, I believe, the CEO or the COO of DoorDash.
Yes.
How did that happen?
So that was a great experience. This was the time that we were growing really well. And we realized that actually we need that expertise. So that's the time that we thought about we need to have investors on board, because not only growth needs capital, but the knowledge is important for us. And seeing people that are experienced, have done it before, they come up with questions and ideas that actually we're just hitting, and they've done it and passed it, and that was amazing. So I remember my encounter with Tony Zhu, and it was really lovely. He looked at our charts and things that we were doing, but the important thing he asked me was, how many times do you actually talk to your customers? And I said, well, I do that every day. And that was like, okay, I'm in. And I said, oh, perfect. So he became one of our angel investors. Yeah.
And I think once Tony invested, given that DoorDash is a really large, big company in the US that kind of dominates food delivery, you had a fairly competitive seed round. There are lots of people interested.
Yes.
Who did you choose? How did you think about it? And what's been the relationship with the investors kind of since they've invested?
For me, it was the first experience. It was quite fun, but on the other hand, it was quite nerve-wracking as well, to be honest. So I remember...
You'd never pitched a venture firm before this?
Never. I've never pitched.
So, yeah, how was that experience? And did you get better at it as you kind of went through?
Well, you can tell me, because you saw my first pitch, and then you saw my pitch at Hawkson Ventures.
I definitely think you got a lot better, but I think there were definitely multiple term sheets, right? There were lots of firms that were kind of interested, and then how did you end up kind of constructing the round?
That was a really good question, because again, one of the focus of me and my co-founder was about the knowledge that they can bring on the table. So I had heard and I read a lot about board meetings, and I kept thinking about the future relationship that we're going to have. And that was really important for me, because what I wanted to get out of the board meetings is being able to tap into smart people who see a lot of different businesses and could give me honest feedback, because that's the way that we could keep on track. And that was what we were looking every time at any term sheet. So honestly, that was more important for me than anything else, from the shares, from the, all of that. So we had a high bar, and I'm very proud of, the investors that we have right now.
And who, besides us, who's the other investor?
Per.
And maybe say a little bit about Per. Who is Per?
Yeah, absolutely. So Pejman was the first person that we approached from Per. And I remember, again, one of his questions was, how many customers did you have when you started? And I said, 0. And he said, nada, 0? I said, 0, a big fat 0. I didn't have any customers before that. And that was one of his game changers for him. He has been super supportive in connecting us with a lot of the different angels. So Tony Zhu, we knew out of Pejman. We are actually their biggest investments out of US. And Pepe, who is on our board, he is a fantastic builder. So he has got a lot of experience in marketing, especially digital. So they've always reached out and offered help at the right times. And I'm very grateful for that.
And I believe Pejman and Per were the very first investor in DoorDash as well. So kind of the circle kind of comes around full circle.
Yes.
And then since the investment, it was a very large seed round by UK standards, at least. Yeah. What did you do after that? I mean, so where were you from Cambridge? And I believe, let's maybe talk a little bit about London as well.
Sure. So we had plans for creating different markets. So by markets, we define what would be the best size to have that fleet of pink cars going around and giving people the right service at the right time. The important thing is, that full service is super important. So that means acutes have a very short time for delivery. Repeats have to be complete and on time all the time. So those are the things that we were looking at. And because it's a multidisciplinary team, so you do have to have a great team of, both clinicians, dispensers, operators, drivers, all of that. So one of our most important focuses was creating the best team around us. It took a lot of trials, a lot of experiments, but I'm extremely proud of the leadership team that we have with us right now.
Who are some of these people that you've kind of put around yourself?
So we brought people that had strengths better than us in every discipline that we could. So one of our product designers is one of the best product designers that was with Growth Hack before. He has amazing experience with both startups, Series A's. He's amazing. The other gentleman was one of the first people who set up Amazon UK. So incredibly skilled in logistics and last mile and moving stuff, as he very sweetly puts it. And again, for people's management, it is very people heavy. So we needed somebody who can handle strong individual contributors like clinicians, like software engineers, as well as fleet of drivers, dispensers, so that multi-stage capacity. All of them are incredibly hands-on. So at a startup, you have to dabble at everything. And they are very generous in bringing new ideas, new perspectives. So that was the key. And I think that is why we are ready to, grow fast.
And then last year, the market changed a little bit, right? The funding got a little bit harder to do. People started worrying a lot more about profitability.
Yes.
And I think we had a series of board meetings.
Yes.
Some of them are not always the easiest board meetings in the world, where we had to say, let's shift the business to become much more focused on profitability. When we first said that as investors, what was your guys' kind of reaction? And then what's kind of changed since then?
Right. Again, we're incredibly grateful because the points were absolutely correct. There was, as you said, there is a time lag of what the understanding of the market is in the UK versus what's happening in the US. But because of this, because of Per and yourself, we were ready for it. So you gave the heads up at the right time. And we took it on board. And we said, actually, that's right. We do need to know, out of each route, are we doing it right or not? How much is the cost per drop? How much is the cost per unit? So we figured those out. We have a fantastic operation leader. So he's really, on a daily basis, is on top of it. On an hourly basis, is on top of it. So how many can you pack within, in an hour, and how many can we deliver? So we have got those details, and those are instrumental in our decision making. Example, we realized that Cambridge is becoming in a self-sufficient marketing thing. So we don't need to spend even a penny. I mean, literally, I have a clinician talk about us, and we sign up 10 people within minutes from each other. So these things have worked really well. Then we focused on, okay, if we want to replicate the same in the new routes that we have, in the London branches that we're opening up, how can we replicate that, and how can we replicate it that fast? So that heads up was really timely.
And so for everyone in the audience, because we're delivering this medication to people, we're super high service as a business in terms of people they really do spend time talking to the pharmacist. It's not just someone delivers the drugs and kind of goes away.
Yeah.
How do you and then we're delivering these door to door so that everyone gets them, kind of like the old fashioned milkman where the milk shows up at the door, your prescription medication shows up at the door. How long did that take to make the unit economics really work? How long was that journey to go from unprofitable to profitable on every single drop? And what were some of the surprising things that you might have learned to make these things profitable?
That's a good question. We went back to the strengths of the business. The beauty of the business is it is very high recurring. and high retention. And we thought, okay, how can we use these two? The recurring part is that we know majority of the prescriptions in the UK are monthly. So we could predict that exactly 28 days from today, we're going to have the same delivery in the same route. So that high predictability made us able to plan backwards from getting prescription stock and everything on time, doing the routes of the drivers in a way that they become extremely cost efficient. The other strength that we had was this, the retention. So we have customers more than 24 months. More than 85% we are still their nominated pharmacy. So that's beautiful. And that is one of the reasons for that is the quality of care. So one of the challenges is the buyer is not the user in healthcare. So insurances are the people who pay for it, but the actual user of it is patients. And quality of care is one of the biggest markers of the success of a company. So how do we use that, and we're not going to get paid for it, but use it to our own benefit? We tried to automate everything that we could, so all the sticking the label to the pack, all of these more and more automation and the operating system, so that we could free up the clinicians. They had the right information in their hands at the right time that they wanted to talk. So the talks became more productive, and they could show that compassion and that clinical professionalism every time they were talking. So this shift took about 6 months, I could say.
Yeah, and it was 6, I think, pretty difficult months, right? In terms of, and every week you were tracking
Yes.
these numbers to see if they're kind of coming down in
Yes.
terms of like the economics are working. The economics now seem to work.
Yeah.
So what's the big idea now for the company? Like how do you become a really big multi-billion-dollar type company in the UK? Where do you see the market opportunity, and how do you want to grow into it?
So right now is about those growth hacks that we can find out. So we've created these outreach experiments to see. The good thing is we've got different levers that we can play with. So again, most of my time right now is talking direct to the customers to understand exactly what you need, and then bring it back to the team and say, how can we sort this out? So we're creating more digital tools, we're creating more portals, we're allowing customers to do more and more. So that improves the service. So again, the tech enablers, we're using them a lot, but then looking at all the different ways that we can grow on the street. So Vinny Pooji had a great conversation yesterday here, and he was talking about one of the startups, Truebill, that they'd use billboards in the town. And that's literally the cars for us. So they are like, mobile billboards going around. And then we measure them and see, okay, those that we have more condensed routes, is it translating in more signups? And we're trying to measure that much better.
And are you worried at all about the big pharmacies kind of doing any of these things?
I think they'll have a good couple of months at least gap to get where we are, and by then we will be a couple of months ahead of them. So no, I'm not.
So good. I mean, I think we're super excited to be investors in you guys. We think there's a huge market opportunity. That's the reason why we wrote the check. I'm really glad we were able to do this fireside chat and kind of talk through some of these things. Your relationship with the investors, how would you kind of describe it in a couple of words?
I think I'm extremely lucky. They're exactly what you're exactly what I wanted. Pear and Pepper as well. Because this honest feedback really, really helps us to stay focused for the company, iterate fast, and that's exactly what we need.
And for advice for the audience, for people who are doing this, if they're selecting their investors, if they're thinking about building a business, do you think is it just money or is it more than money?
It's definitely more than money. There's plenty of money. You can get money from anybody, anywhere. But the knowledge, the connections, one of the early connections that you helped me make was the founder of FY. And I was so nervous about marketing, I'd never done anything like that. And I talked to him and he said, look, you know your customers and that's enough. And I said, okay. So that confidence that you created by connecting us, that is incredibly valuable. It's really good learning for us.
So, message to the audience: pick your market carefully and pick your investors just as carefully.
Yes, absolutely.
Good.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jose. Thank you.
Thank you both so much.